Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services here this afternoon, we would kindly ask everyone to please turn off or silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
Esaina el harim meyayin yavo Ezri meim Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz aliti lamot raglecha ayanu shomrecha hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla Adonai yishmorcha mikora yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmar tzetecha uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam.
The words of Psalm 121. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. Judaism teaches that birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back, we pray, to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death, to life everlasting. Grief, we are taught, is the price we pay for having the courage to love others as deeply as we do. And we are also taught that grief is really just love, It's all the love you still want to give but can't. All that unspent love gathers up in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, in that hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no physical place to go. And so this afternoon, as we share in these moments of grief and in these sacred moments of memory, our grief turns back to love and then to tears, perhaps even to laughter and moments of silence, and then back we pray to love again. We join together to honor the life of Norman Grolnick, to reflect on the legacy that he leaves in our world, and we gather together to try to bring some measure of comfort to you, his family, to his wife of close to 60 years, Myrna, to his children, Rob and Amy, to Allie and Brent, to his sister Judy, to his grandchildren, Samantha, Michael, Blake, Kobe, and Julia. Norman spent his early years growing up on the west side of Philadelphia before his family moved to New Jersey during his sophomore year in high school. And it was while attending Temple University that he met Myrna. It was, I'm told, Heart Month, and Myrna's sorority was raising money for heart-related charities by shining shoes. Norman came by and she tried to shine his, and he suggested that she come by his dorm where she could shine all of the guys' shoes. And they hit it off instantly. Norman got sick with mono not long after they met, and Myrna would send him cards. And in those early days, they would spend hours talking on the phone. Norman's sister Judy, I'm told, tried to talk Norman out of dating Myrna, potentially not wanting to lose a friend if things didn't work out. But Norman didn't listen, and the rest, as they say, is history. Kind of. Norman was someone who loved doing things in an orderly way, and having just made the switch to dental school, Norman wanted everything in place before asking Myrna to marry him. As Myrna shared, she's pretty sure they'd still be dating had it not been for Norman's mother, who at one point looked at Norman and asked him, "Do you really think she's going to wait forever?" And then promptly took him to the jeweler to pick out a ring. They were married in 1968. Norman finished dental school and enlisted as an officer in the Navy, serving as a dentist, necessitating a move to Maryland from Philadelphia. And after his time in the service, they started their family, first Rob, then Allie, and started their life together in New Jersey. They made friends, and the running joke was that every friend they had as a couple, Norman picked up, being the more social one of the two of them. And as has been mentioned by so many people upon hearing of Norman's passing, if you met him, you loved him. It was that simple. Norman had the ability to focus in on you and make you feel like the most important person in the world in that moment. As Rob shared, it didn't matter if he was talking to the president of a company or the person who took out the trash. Norman taught his children by example that you always treat everyone with respect. To the point that, as Brent shared, when eating at a restaurant, Norman would always ask the server their name. They too were people, they mattered, and they were deserving of kindness and respect. As a father, Norman was always present, and Rob and Allie shared the physical activities they enjoyed doing with him, whether it was playing basketball together, running races, swimming in the pool. Norman loved to be outside, and poolside in the sun was his happy place. So much so that his license plate read, Sun 51. Norman also liked to sing and would combine his love of singing with his enjoyment of driving carpool for soccer and Hebrew school, to the point that he would get all of the kids in the car singing, often in a round, I'm told, to golden oldies and favorites like The Lion Sleeps Tonight. As Allie shared, he always made everything fun, even if it was just their special trips to McDonald's or Burger King after soccer tournaments. Norman always showed up. at soccer games, dance shows, swim meets. Just as he was president of every school he ever attended, as a father, he was also always involved and loved supporting not just his own kids, but other kids on the team as well. He was a great dance dad, and when Rob and Allie were on the swim team, he would wake them up early for swim meets yelling, "Let's go Willowdale," and would do what he could to run around and get them hyped up. In fact, he continued to go and watch swim meets when Rob and Allie were no longer on the swim team, just like he'd go and cheer on the high school teams after his own kids had graduated. He loved to show up and support others. Allie also recalled never being scared of going to the dentist like so many other kids were. Instead, her memory was of looking up into her dad's eyes as he cleaned her teeth. And despite all that he was going through, with his MS symptoms becoming more persistent by the time he became a grandfather, or P-Pop as his grandchildren called him, he'd still show up with a smile on his face, beaming with pride. As Samantha shared, whenever I saw him, he was always cheerful. When we were little, he had this blue ring that he'd spin around and do magic tricks with, making it appear and disappear. He always wanted us to have the best time. He'd show up at all of our different shows and events, always with the kindest things to say. Norman had a compliment for everyone and would remember the details you shared with him. He'd often ask about his family's friends or coworkers by name and remember what was going on in their lives. As Brent shared, there was not a mean bone in his body. And from the start, he made me feel welcomed into the family and loved. He was like a second father to me. Brent continued, "It's not always easy to be as kind as Norman always was." Amy commented that he'd always have a compliment to share with her, to the point that she began wondering if he was for real and actually being honest. At least until one time when she was sick with the flu, and Norman saw her and commented, "Oh, you don't look so good today." To which she agreed and thought to herself, okay, this guy has credibility. He's legit. Norman loved to play tennis and racquetball before it became too difficult, but still worked hard to stay as well and as healthy as possible, and Myrna helped with that as well, becoming Norman's #1 personal trainer. Norman was a huge Philly sports fan and an incredibly proud Jew. He would wear his mezuzah around his neck, and he and Myrna were members of Makor Shalom and now Kol Ami for over 45 years. While Norman had been raised conservative, they joined Makor Shalom so Myrna could feel comfortable too, and they made lifelong friends through the synagogue as well. Norman loved Judaism and the cultural elements, and his knowledge of lesser-known Jewish holidays would come in handy as a funny quip when someone would ask why they were off work or school on any specific day, and Norman would joke that it was something like Lag BaOmer. Myrna and Norman also enjoyed their trip to Israel with the synagogue. And while Allie was studying abroad there, Myrna and Norman waited until the Makor Shalom trip was going to actually visit. As a husband, Norman was the most giving and kind person, and he never missed a day telling Myrna how much he loved her or how pretty she looked. And one of the family's favorite moments was the last vacation they took together, when Myrna and Norman took everyone to Turks and Caicos for their 50th wedding anniversary. As we were finishing up talking yesterday evening, Allie, you really summed it up so beautifully when you commented on how very expressive your dad was and how he always was your #1 fan. As you shared, we loved him, and we are so very lucky to know how much he loved us. It is said that we don't remember days, we remember moments. We think back on a lifetime of memories and the moments shared together. Perhaps it's the big momentous times, holidays or birthdays, anniversaries, family trips, simchas, or other celebrations. But most likely, many of the moments are from ordinary days moments that our hearts just somehow seem to hold on to, that can bring you right back to how you felt in his presence, that remind us how close he still feels, even in the emptiness that testifies to how much he is missed and how deeply he is still loved. I invite you to join me now in the words of Psalm 23, this hope of comfort, this hope of stability, often in uncertain and dark and difficult times. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We'll hear from several speakers representing Norman's family and friends this afternoon. We'll begin first with Judy, Norman's sister.
Thank you, Rabbi. I really think you did a beautiful job of summing up a wonderful, wonderful person. When you think of Norman Grolnick, and so many of you, as you walked in today, told me your thoughts about my brother. You told me, you said he always had such a welcoming smile. Some of you talked about the twinkle in his blue eyes. And you said, like the rabbi said, he always had an interest in you. He truly wanted to know about you. And as one person so rightly put it, as my father would have always said, Norman is the ultimate mensch. And if you ask him how he was, he had one answer: I'm great. He said he was great, even though he was struggling to take that step. But if you ask me, I can close my eyes real tight, and I could see a child running and laughing and taking enormous pride that he was the fastest kid on the block. My entire life, I have considered myself the luckiest and so blessed to have grown up in such a wonderful family. Those of you who remember my parents know this is true. And then there was my brother Norm. My earliest memories of my big brother was him being my playmate, my friend, my teacher, and my biggest fan too, but he was also my protector. He was loving and caring, and as all of you have said, just plain nice. And that was not a feeling of mine alone. Everybody gravitated to him. Friends from elementary school will bear me out. He was one of the most popular kids. He was always trusted, and he was elected president of every class and every school he ever attended. He was captain of all the sports teams he was on, and at camp, he always won that coveted all-around camper award. And with all of that, he was unassuming. He had the gift of making you feel special. People actually asked me, are you jealous of him? And the truth was, I really never was. I was just proud. I was proud that I was his sister. And even now, when people find out that I'm Norman's sister, they always say the same thing. And you know it. You say it. He was the nicest guy. Let me just give you a peek into what childhood was like with Norman. I was the one that got into trouble. And when I did something bad, he always told my parents it was his fault. They didn't believe him, but he tried. Here's another story When we were in high school, we wound up being in the same Spanish class. He took 2 years of Latin before, so he was a much better student than I was. One day he was going up and handing in the paper. We had just taken a test, and he looked over and he saw, oh, she doesn't know the answer, so he whispered the answer to me. I didn't hear it, but the teacher did. Old Mrs. Whitlock said, Judy, you're not paying attention. Your brother just told you the answer. Even she knew he really wasn't cheating. He was just being sweet. Losing my dear Norman will be felt by everybody who knew him. His friends, his patients, my dearest husband, who I never would have met without my sister-in-law and brother, his amazing children, Rob, Allie, Brent, his 5 most precious people in the world, his grandchildren, Sammy, Michael, Blake, Julia, and Kobe. And then his amazing wife, my friend, my sister. You've been there for him in the most loving and caring ways. You supported him even when I was ready to kill you because you were making him work so hard. But you did it. You did it out of love. And now it's time to say thank you, dear brother. Thank you for showing me what kindness looks like. Thank you for loving so naturally and so deeply that everybody felt it. Thank you for showing that even when you faced the hardest challenges, like his MS, nothing was going to bring you down. I've said it before, and I said it again. I was always proud to be his sister. He was my hero, and he truly was and is the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
We'll now call upon Rob, Norman's son.
Hi, everyone. First, I just want to thank everyone for being here on behalf of me and my family to celebrate, honor, and remember Norman, my dad. I'm also giving this eulogy on behalf of my sister, Allie. Al, you got to stop crying. I'm not going to get through this. And I'm giving this on behalf of both of Norman's children. When my dad was diagnosed with MS some 30 years ago, I guess a part of me always knew there was a chance I may end up here sharing these thoughts with you. Thank you. And while we always knew tougher times would probably come for Dad, somehow that knowledge doesn't provide much comfort right now. As you can see by the number of people that are here in this room, Norman had an impact on so many lives. I'd like to share with you a little bit about our dad. First, let me tell you about some things that he was not. And although he liked to sing, he was not a particularly good singer. The man could barely carry a tune. But he didn't let that stop him from singing his favorite golden oldies, like Sherry by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, frequently. at a high volume and in a manner that sounded more like a howl than an actual song. And although I think my mom did a good job of making him look good when he did it, I'm not sure that he was a particularly good dancer. Before there was Elaine from Seinfeld, there was my dad doing this convulsive dance at Hanukkah while we all sang the dreidel song, complete with a herky-jerky pirouette. You remember that, Al? And despite being the owner of a successful dental practice for many years, I have to confess that Dad was not a particularly good businessman. He wrote off too many bills for patients that couldn't afford to pay them. He would call up the cable company to cancel some home services to save a little money, and instead he'd end up with a package of new premium channels for the low price of only $34.99 more per month. But let me tell you a little bit about the man that our dad was. He was a loving, patient, and supportive husband, father, grandfather, brother, uncle, cousin, and friend. Dad loved photography like his father, Phil, before him. And after Allie and I had kids, at family gatherings, he would take so many pictures of all of us that we started calling him the Grand Paparazzi. And then he would tape some of those photos that he took inside of our birthday cards that he and Mom would send us, adding a thoughtful, personal touch. Another practice he picked up from my grandfather, Phil. Dad wasn't afraid to tell us that he loved us or to give us a hug in public. He always saw the good in people. Dad was simply the kindest, gentlest, and honestly the happiest person I've ever known. He had a truly infectious joy and disposition that just drew people to him and made them feel good when they were around him. Growing up, when my friends saw him, they would affectionately yell out, "Norm," like we were all on an episode of Cheers. And some of them are here now. Thanks, guys. In fact, we had a theory that maybe there was a leak in a nitrous tank at my dad's dental office. And maybe that was the reason why he was just so happy all the time. I can barely remember a time our father raised his voice. I honestly don't ever remember hearing him say a bad word about anybody, even the people that truly deserved it. So when MS forced him to retire from practicing dentistry, probably earlier than he would have, and then to give up driving, which he loved to do so much, and then to use a cane, and later a walker, and then most recently when he was pretty much confined to a wheelchair, Dad was still pretty much happy. And above all, he was full of love. As his condition worsened over the years, Dad had so many reasons, so many opportunities to succumb to anger or bitterness. But instead, he consistently exuded happiness and joy and love. He loved my mother and his kids and his grandchildren and his family and his friends, and they all, we all, loved him right back. So our father may not have been very good at some things in his life, but he was truly exceptional at some of the things that matter most. So the next time we encounter a challenge or a disappointment, or even something outright hateful in our lives, maybe we can think about Norman, our dad, and find a way to face it with a little more grace and happiness and love instead. We love you, Dad, and you'll be in our hearts forever.
And lastly, we'll call forward Phyllis and Michael Dorn, lifelong friends.
I'll just tell you a little bit about the history that Norman, Myrna, and Michael and I have had with each other. We met Norman by happenstance when we first moved into Watergate, 1974. I was cleaning the patio glass doors, and Norman was walking Banshee, his dog. Shall I say the rest is history? Our friendship started with us exchanging our hellos. Then, of course, Michael and I met Myrna, and we were and are the true definition of good friends, or in today's language, BFFs. Norman was versed on any subject, but always listened to what you had to say. When we lived in Watergate, Norman took me to his office on a Saturday, which he had no hours, in his orange Cutlass to bond my front teeth, to eliminate my diastema, which I always said it made me look like Lauren Hutton. However, I was thrilled that Norman gave me my own identity. We had a special bond, no pun intended, like family. We always included each other at family events because we were family. Myrna and Norman just helped us celebrate our grandson Cooper's bar mitzvah this past November. There wasn't anything too difficult for Norman to do, except clean out his wallet. We all know that Norman was a collector. The piles on his desk had piles. We were a good team. He was a vanilla guy, and I chocolate. We did share our love for peanut M&Ms. Norman will be deeply missed. He brightened a room with his presence. There is a common thread that has been heard today of Norman's optimism and of his glass always being completely full. Another common thread is Norman's love for Myrna, and vice versa. Myrna, I know that you know this, but I just want to say it out loud. Your love and devotion for Norman was always present. Your physical care, as well as your unwavering love and emotional support throughout Norman's long illness were gold medal worthy. You never complained, and in your realistic approach to life, did what had to be done. Norman loved you from the day you two met. As we say to the kids, good job, Myrna. Love you both. Norman, rest in peace. We will be there for Myrna.
Today, I want to talk about my best friend, Norman Grolnick. Not just my BFF, but truly family. Norman and I shared something special that we always used to make us smile. Oh, you can't?
That's because you're used to my loud voice.
Yeah, but family. Norman and I shared something special that always made us smile. We shared the same birthday, November 21st, for the last 50 years. We celebrated that day together. That is a half century of laughter, friendship, and most people only have to experience once in their lives. Norman was one of the most sincere, genuinely good people I have ever known. He lived his life with a kind of optimism that never wavered. With Norman, the glass wasn't just half full, it was completely full. No matter what life threw his way, Norman always found the good in it. We shared so many life events together, the happy times, the hard times, and through it all, Norman was steady, supportive, and always positive. One of the things I always remember is I would call Norman before each Eagles game. And I'd say, hey, Norm, what are the Eagles going to do today? And he would, without hesitation, always had them winning. So that was just who Norman was. It seems to be a common theme throughout this tribute. That optimism balanced me. We were different in that way, and maybe that's exactly why we were made for each other as friends. He lifted me up more times than I can count. Norman wasn't someone I knew. He was part of my life story for decades, a lifetime friend. The kind of person you do not replace. I'm going to miss him very much. I'm deeply saddened the world has lost a truly wonderful person, but I am also incredibly grateful that I had him in my life for so long. May life always be a blessing, and may we carry forward the optimism, kindness, and sincerity he showed us every day. Norman, my friend, I will miss you always.
Shadows falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while. If I leave you, it doesn't mean I love you any less. Keep me in your heart for a while. When you get up in the morning and you see that crazy sun, keep me in your heart for a while. There's a train leaving nightly called When All Is Said and Done. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. la 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 lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you'll think of me and smile. You know I'm tied to you like the buttons on your blouse. Keep me in your heart for a while. Hold me in your thoughts, take me to your dreams, touch me as I fall into view. When the winter comes, keep the fires lit, and I will be right next to you. Engine drivers headed north to Pleasant Stream, keep me in your heart for a while. These wheels keep turning, but they're running out of steam. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la, la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la, la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart for a while.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. As we hold on to all of the memories shared this afternoon, the legacy of love and blessing that Norman leaves behind in this world, I invite you to please rise for our memorial prayer of El Male Rachamim.
Il male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzei menucha nechona, tachat kanafei ashchina, im kedoshim utehorim, kizor harakia, mazhirim, et nishmat Naftali Herz ben Pinchas shehalach li'olamo Ba'al harachamim yastirehu beseter knafav le'olamim veitzror bitzror achayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Norman Naftali Hertz ben Pinchas, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence and in the shadow of your wings. Let his soul always be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he now rest in peace. And together we all say, Amen. Please be seated. Interment will follow our chapel service this afternoon at Shalom Memorial Park. Norman's family will be observing Shiva following interment this afternoon at their Marlton home from 4 until 8 p.m. and again tomorrow from 2 until 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and then again from 6 until 8 p.m. in the evening. Minyan services both nights will be at 7 p.m.
If I could ask you to get all rise once more, please.
Adonai rohi lo echsar birot deshe yarbitzeni al memnuchot yinahaleni nafshi yeshovev yanchini v'magle tzedek למען שמו גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא ירא כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך עמה ינחמוני תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי דשנת ושמן ראשי כוסי רוויה אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.